For those watching on YouTube, they might see that I am back at my uncomfortable desk. It is so nice to be home and get back on this regular call-up schedule. Jack, you are home as well, but you had a quick stop on the 5 stadiums in 5 days tour. By the way, those of you who came out, it was so much fun. Thank you so much to those who came to one of the 5 stadiums with us and caught a ball game. I got to check off another one. I got to 30 now. I got 2 left, Minnesota, Kansas City. But man, it was so much fun meeting so many listeners of the Just Baseball Show, the call up, just followers of Just Baseball in general, baseball fans in general at each of these stops. And we got some really good games. The over was 5 for 5, by the way, in each of
Really?
the games we went to. But I will say, getting home on Saturday,
Yeah.
I had not felt that relaxed in a while. I took the longest nap I've taken in a while. Just all of the road miles, it was so much fun. We're going to do something similar next year, and we'll keep you posted on that. Might be more college, minor league, everything kind of mixed in. But man, like that was a bender of a road trip and a lot of fun though.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, it wasn't powering through, I guess, but like you got to attach so many, names and faces to the listener base of the call up and the Just Baseball Show, which is like what we do this shit for, really. It was awesome to have that person to person interaction and thank people for wasting their time
Yes.
ingesting what we say. And like, man, that was really cool to join you guys in Milwaukee and watch from afar. That had to be really fulfilling, but I understand why the nap was so long on
Yeah.
Saturday.
Well, we woke up or right before we woke up on Friday and 7 hour drive. I hung back, helped my girlfriend pack as we get ready to move to Florida and then flew. But we found out that day that Saturday morning's flight was canceled back
Nice.
to New York. Spirit. Never doing that. I'm just not bothering with Spirit ever again.
No, no, no.
So
I did it once, actually coming down to you for spring training, and I'm like, I'm good. Moving
yeah.
forward, I'm good.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a nightmare with Spirit. So, worked out. It was a blast, and I can't wait to do our next trip next year. We're gonna get creative with it and make it really fun. And of course, we will keep you in the loop. But it was a success. And again, thank you for everyone who made it a success. This episode today, we got plenty to catch up on. Where we got more promotions. I know you caught up on some of them. And we're gonna talk about some more prospects that are climbing levels, also just some performers of late. And that kind of coincides with the promotion for some of them. But I think there's just some topics. I want to talk Vries of the Padres, who's just been locked in of late, add a little bit of context to what he's been able to do, 1,000 OPS over his last 25 games. Brandon Sproat, I think, had the best pitching performance we've seen in the minor leagues this year. I don't know if you can think of a better one, and maybe Drew Hackenberg and his 16 Ks, but in terms of just raw stuff and what he did, thought the Mets prospect had one of the more dominant outings we've seen, and a few other topics to fill in between. But I'm just excited to catch up on the rest of the promotions and get back into just the stories in minor league baseball. And I think that's going to be a theme this week too, where I want to have another episode where we just kind of talk about what's going on, because it's been a while. I feel like we've been playing catch up with the draft, with promotions in general, and just kind of everything going on, and then signings after that.
Yeah.
It'll be nice to kind of get back into the topics and just the storylines in minor league baseball. But we have some really significant promotions to get through before we do that. And also, we will have a top 100 update with the draft guys this week for sure. I can guarantee it this time because we have been hammering away at that. That was what I was spending a lot of the road hours on. So we will definitely have some content around that at the end of this week and then early next week.
I'm going to start with a couple of notable performances without a promotion coinciding, and then we'll wrap up with a whole slew of upcoming promotions. But before we get to Leo DeVries and Max Clark, because I want to start with those guys right now and what they're doing at their respective levels, the low A and high A level. 2 yes or no questions. Question number 1. Are you drunk on Christian Moore yet?
He could not have started much better, man. It has been wild to see. And he's just giving them all of the fuel, the Angels, all of the fuel that they need to run it back with this just expedited push. And they're being validated right now to a degree, right?
Yeah.
Nolan Chanuel starting to settle in at the big league level, whether you think it's sustainable or not. We didn't think it was a lot of people didn't think it was sustainable the first time where he came out hot, and then it wasn't. But now here he is again, putting it together, and this part might be a little bit more sustainable. Zach Neto is really coming into his own as well. Yes, it's taken some time, but I'm never going to be anti starting these players' clocks and having them develop at the big league level. Is it smart for sustainable success? Probably not, but I'm pro that. Like, cool. Get those guys clocks started, get them paid. I don't care.
For sure.
I mean, and that's the cool thing about it. So I think they're going to do something similar. More, I mean, it has been crazy how hard he's hitting the baseball. And like we knew he hit the ball hard, but like it's been nice to see how quickly it can translate into these massive EVs. One game alone, he had, I think, a handful over 100 miles an hour, and he already has a double at 113, a home run at 109. Like I am very impressed with how hard he's hitting the baseball, and honestly, how he's been able to handle. It's only been 3 games, but so far how he's been able to handle some better breaking stuff. He hasn't struck out yet,
Yeah.
which is pretty remarkable.
And part of me is saying, like, man, we should have known he was going to hit the ground running like this because he hasn't jumped into the slog of, like, hey, it's August 15th and you're on game 80 in the minor leagues. Like, what does that low leverage game look like for Christian Moore? But when the moment is big, when he's making his pro debut, when he's in his first week of pro baseball, when he jumps to Double A and makes his Double A debut, that's a big moment. And we know this guy rises to the big moment as well as anybody in non-professional baseball and professional baseball at this point. Like, he was so good in Omaha. He was so good in his 2 games in low A. He was so good in his Double A debut. Anytime the spotlight is on Christian Moore, I feel like this guy is going to thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he probably still feels the spotlight to a degree. First round pick being an Angels first rounder where everyone is looking towards you, knowing that your development's going to be different and that if you show some good things, you can be up at the big leagues quickly. I think there is a little bit of that fire within him. A couple things that on the positive side, he's hitting balls outside of the zone pretty well. There's a home run he hit that was like maybe a ball in. That's the one that he hit 109. My one concern, aside from the defense being a little bit limited at second, the thing I still want to see, and I think he needs to, and he's only going to be able to do that by playing more games in Double A. But the one thing that he'll probably need to show before he gets that promotion to Triple A and maybe the big leagues is, I want to see how he handles velocity at the top, and that was the one thing that kind of chewed him up at times, and just carrying fastballs in the upper third. So far, he has not really seen any velocity, which is interesting. He saw more velocity, I think, actually in his first game at the lower levels than he has in high A and in the first, or excuse me, and in the second game in low A and then Double A. But mostly it's been kind of low 90s stuff. So I want to see how he handles that 95 with ride at the top and things like that. But that's not easy for anyone to handle. It's just his swing is a little bit grooved against that. If he's showing that he can lay off of that stuff that's slightly above the top of the zone and get to those pitches that are tugged down, I mean, he's going to be just about ready because the swings on balls outside of the zone have been really impressive. He's a tough read, and I think that's what makes it fun. And the Angels are only going to make him a tougher read. So it's just been a blast to see him start so hot and make that adjustment straight into double.
Yeah. Second yes or no question. Are you shocked that Jackson Holliday isn't cooked and over the hill?
No, I am shocked at how good it looks though right away.
Yeah.
It's not like he's been perfect in AAA either. There's still some whiff there, but it's been really impressive. I mean, he was, it wasn't like he was getting an opportunity here to just come up against some weak big league pitching either. Like one of his best swings was on a Tim Herron left on left. I want to say it was either a fastball running in and it's like a sinker, so it's going to run in down on his hands.
Yeah.
And he still, hit it really hard. It was an out, but like that swing in itself was just like, okay, wow, he's getting the pitches that he wasn't getting to before. Grinding out ABs, 7-8 pitch ABs. It's not like Cantillo's a very easy at bat for him either, left on left. Like it was really nice to see him, just prove that he is that guy. And, whether he's a 70 hit tool guy or not, I think the ship may have sailed there, but it's clear that he just has this knack for hitting. And he's just a dude that can produce and help the Orioles down the stretch here. So yes, it's been awesome to see this.
I love that he took like the bumps and bruises like a pro and he went down to AAA. He got right. This progression is very, very similar to last year's Grayson Rodriguez, where G-Rod came up. G-Rod really struggled. He was optioned. He got right in Norfolk. He came back and he was one of the better pitchers in all of baseball. Now, I'm not saying that Jackson Holliday is going to be one of the better hitters in all of baseball, because I think hitting the ground running offensively is exponentially harder than hitting the ground running on the hill, because your stuff is going to play. Your stuff is your stuff. Your stuff looks the same at the big leagues than it does in Norfolk, and the chances are adrenaline ups that.
Yeah.
Adrenaline is a bad thing in the batter's box, in essence. Like, it is not a great thing. So I'm not saying that he's going to put together, an 1100 OPS for the remainder of the year, but to expect that this guy is going to suck would be unfair. And to expect that this guy would be at an MVP level would be unfair. I think this guy's going to be a very solid part of that Baltimore Orioles lineup for the final 2 months in the postseason, however long they get in that. And we're looking at Jackson Holliday opening day as slotting into the 2-hole or slotting into the 5-hole, whichever one they deem, the spot for Jackson Holliday on opening day 2025.
Yeah, I love that you bring up the point. It seems like his heart rate was slower, just getting that debut out of the way, feeling like he probably had nothing to lose. It couldn't go worse. It couldn't go worse than the first time up. So, just go out there and play ball. Worst case scenario, you struggle a little bit, you get a clean slate next year, and everyone's still going to be very excited about you. You're still going to have those same people saying negative things like they do every time a prospect comes up and struggles, and then we rinse and repeat. But it has been really nice to see him look comfortable. And it wasn't like he was tearing the cover off the ball in AAA. I think it really was more of an effort to kind of figure things out, get into a spot, and then he tore the cover off the ball over the final 10 games, and they brought him up amidst a hot streak. Like, that's how you do this thing, right? If you're going to send him back down, you got to bring him back up when he's hot. He was striking out a little bit more in that stretch, even of those 10 games, 11 punch outs in AAA prior to the call up. But at the same time, he still in those games had a 965 OPS and was doing a little bit of everything. Also, he got absolutely hosed on one of the worst strike three calls I've seen all year on a curveball that was about 6 inches off the plate.
Pitching Ninja called it hazing. I'm with him.
It kind of seemed like it, right? And I mean, singling off of Class A, a home run off of Gavin Williams that I think was like a ball inside as well. Like just some really impressive swings by Jackson Holliday. So hopefully he can keep it rolling. Maybe they even just keep him away from lefties, even though he's been much better against them throughout his AAA stint, and just put him in positions for success. But this could be a huge boost for the O's.
Speaking of really impressive swings, what do you want to talk about when it comes to Leo Vries? When I look at like the progression that he's taken within that Padres organization and the numbers there, it's really what I feel like we were asking from Ethan Salas last year, where it's just like, hey, you're at low A, you become comfortable and you start killing in low A. But for some reason, they felt the need to push him to double. And this year, he has been one of the worst qualified hitters in high A baseball this year.
Yep.
Leo Vries, on the other hand, you mentioned, has been unbelievable the last month or 6 weeks. This guy on the season, a 780 OPS in low A. He's played 64 games in low A. He won't turn 18 until October 11th. So after the season concludes.
Yeah. I mean, that's the craziest part. And like, thank goodness they're just keeping him in low A. Like, I'm hoping they like learn their lesson here too. Ironically, he's won for his last 16. And I still wanted to talk about him because over his last 25 games, with that included, he's slashing 291, 407, 602. And I just realized, like, we haven't talked too much about Vries because going into the year, what were we going to talk about? And then in the early parts of the year, I didn't want to draw any major conclusions. I wanted to let this kid play and just see what things look like, have a larger sample of data, have enough video of ABs that I can dive into and look at. And, I felt like now was finally a time where I've seen the good and the bad so far, and just want to check in on one of baseball's most intriguing and highest upside prospects, I think, when you look forward. I wanted to check in because you don't totally know what the profile is going to be. Like, even if you look at like scouting write-ups in Baseball America, who's I think the gold standard on international free agency, Ben Badler plays a big part of that. Yeah. But you still have no idea. Is he going to be more hit over power? Is he going to be able to stick at a position? Like, it's so hard to know until these guys come stateside and play, a significant amount of games. And some reports had Vries as kind of hit over power, others a little bit more power over hit. And I think from what we've seen so far, I think he's power over hit. But that idea that maybe he could have been a plus hitter was probably because of the elite plate discipline. And that's the other thing that's really stuck out to me. So you have that elite plate discipline. I still think he can be an average hitter, maybe even a little bit better than that. I'm not going to cap a 17-year-old who's playing in low A, but I have a lot more confidence in projecting plus power than projecting plus hit. And I think that a big reason why maybe as an amateur that he was viewed as potentially a plus hitter was because of how much more advanced he was approach wise. And that's why I love separating these two things, as I'll always say. But the swing decisions are so advanced for a 17-year-old switch hitter. I mean, if you look at his last 30 games, he's running a chase rate of 18%. And building on that, tapping into more power as he's gotten more comfortable and just recognizing spin and everything. Like, I do think he can be an average hitter, but what has been so amazing to me is he's elevating consistently. The EVs have continued to climb as the year has progressed, and his chase rate has continued to decline as the year has progressed. Like, he is really just coming into his own. I think a big reason though why he has had this insane hot streak is he has been getting some more right-handed ABs.
Yeah.
And one thing that I noticed with him, and I think the left-handed swing is going to continue to come along, and he's been fine this year from the left side, is there's this little double hand pump from the left side that he features versus from the right side. It's kind of a smooth all-in-one hand move in his load. And that double pump, I think, is disrupting the timing a little bit.
Can you give me an example of a guy that does like the double pump? So what you did, like, looked Benny Montgomery for a second, but that's like actually just a hitch. Is it the Tamar Johnson pump thing that he does?
It's almost like it's not as much because he doesn't tip the barrel. It's like part of his load. Like, as he's bringing his hands back, they almost like go up and down instead of just a smooth pull back. It's like that's just the way he's always loaded. It's kind of down, up, down. So it is almost like a micro hitch. It's not Benny Montgomery level, but it is a little bit of a hitch. I don't think you use that word as as comfortably because it's not as disruptive, but it
Hitch
is a
has
little
negative
bit.
connotation. Yeah.
But it is a little bit of a hitch that I do think disrupts his timing. And it's so minor that, when it's a big move, I get worried about it. But it's almost more like a bat waggle than a hitch. It's like the hands move and the bat waggles, and I don't really know how to describe it, but it definitely disrupts his timing. And from the right side, he doesn't do that. And so from the right side this year, you have a 905 OPS. From the left side, you've got a 724. That said, it's gotten better and better as the year's gone on. And over his last 20 games, he's got an 850 OPS from the left side. So that's coming along. But it almost is different from swing to swing, where sometimes it looks like he's wiggling the barrel more. Sometimes it's like his hands actually go up and down. So I think just sorting that out, he's 17. But seeing that from the right side, he's way more smooth and patterned, and you're seeing the production now, I think that is just a kind of a glimpse into what he can do from the left side. And over his last 50, sorry, let me see how low I can go here. 49 at bats from the right side, 7 home runs. Like,
wow.
And he hits the ball harder from the left side, higher EVs. So it's just more conducive to elevating, and it's smoother and it's more consistent from the right side. As that left side comes along, could be an absolute monster. And I think it's going to come along because the swing path is good. The lower half is good. It's just that timing.
As of this update this week, are we possibly looking at a new best prospect in the Padres organization? No comment?
Yes. I'll say yes.
Okay. Yes. All right.
I'll say
fair.
yes. Yeah, I think I love what you mentioned, right? Like, he's everything in terms of the performance that I think we were expecting from Ethan Salas, which is, okay, he looks young. And then, but there's more of the flashes. I think he's giving you more of the flashes.
Well,
and he looks fine as
showing
short.
that, like, it's easy to see guys that young and guys that are really young for a level get more comfortable week by week. And with Vries, we're getting that opportunity to see him get more comfortable. With Salas, we never got that opportunity because the moment it started to look like it was going to get fine at low A, and like the numbers were pretty solid at low A for Ethan Salas, but the moment it looked like he was really coming into his own in low A, all right, time to go to Fort Wayne for a week and a half. All right, time to go to San Antonio. It's like, why? There was no point to it. And now I think we're seeing a guy get actually better and more acclimated, and a 17-year-old mature because he feels comfortable at the level now.
100%. And I hope that, Salas just can go to the drawing board after this year. And I'm sure he's developed plenty still and learned a ton, but it's a 555 OPS. And every time it looks like he's fighting out of it, he hits a wall again and has an O for stretch. So they totally mishandled him. It was just a disaster of I think handling your prospects, but
Yeah.
you can still get right if you're Ethan Salas. It's not like that's gonna spell you for your entire career, but I'll probably start next year again at high A, have the offseason to really focus on things and go from there. It's not like he's getting diced up and striking out a ton, which is encouraging. But
Right.
I think it's clear that DeVries is on a little bit of a different path, even though he's in low A. He's slightly younger, and I think he's already doing things that we didn't quite see from Salas.
Yep. Guy that just got to high A is Max Clark of the Detroit Tigers, and he started his high A stretch with a 9-game hitting streak. He had 15 hits in his first 9 games. In 10 games with West Michigan, as we hit the off day on Monday, this guy slashing 366, 435, 512. Is he punching out a bit? Yeah. But at the end of the day, this guy is spraying the ball around the ballpark, and I guess he's looked somehow more comfortable than McGonigal after the high A push. And I kind of saw that as like an underdog story where it's like, oh, Clark is the comfortable one. Now, granted, McGonigal hit a ball, what, 112, 113?
112. That's a
112.
new max for Kevin McGonigal, which if he's got 112 in his bag with that, I think that's a 70 hit. Holy crap.
That high A roster in West Michigan is as fun as you could possibly find now with Jaden Ham in that rotation and then Clark, McGonigal, Tyrone Lorenzo, who just came over in the Flaherty deal too. That lineup has
Real fun.
intrigue.
I love that you brought up the fact that he is kind of just started hot, but is striking out a little bit.
Yeah.
He's just on time for velocity. He's got his moves down there, and it looks really good. And that's very encouraging for a 19-year-old in high A. Thing where he's gonna, meet his match at times is recognizing that spin and just being adjustable to good, hard secondary stuff. What's interesting is changeups have kind of taken him out too a little bit. He just kind of leaves his base with those. And for that reason, he's actually been a reverse splits guy this year. 980 OPS left on left, 787 against righties. And that's probably the thing to watch. But I love how consistently on time he is for velocity. I love how he's able to repeat his mechanics when it's not a pitch that's taking him out of it. Of course, you're going to see a bunch of pitches taking you out of that as you continue to climb and just continue to play professional baseball. But remember, there's a 19-year-old who's tooled beyond belief, who can play phenomenal center field and can absolutely motor. Like, you gotta have like these checkpoints. And the checkpoints are right now, swing mechanics look good, and he's on it for fastballs, and he's crushing fastballs. Now the next checkpoint's going to be, can you recognize spin and not break down mechanically when that spin or when that changeup comes along? And that'll be the rest of the development this year. I think that'll be the focus for the rest of the year. And I promise you, he's going to start getting spun a lot more, especially with the way he's been able to hit fastballs this season. So it's a great development. It's really exciting, and he's got the exact thing I think to focus on and keep building on to get himself ready for Double A early next year.
Cool. First one that we got to talk about is a big league call-up. It's kind of fun to talk about call-ups on the call-up, right? Kai Busch, left-hander who was part of the Lucas Giolito freak deal with Edgar Carroll at last year's deadline, but Kai Busch, now with the Chicago White Sox, is going to get up. Was he good in AAA? No, not at all in 19 innings, but who cares? Opponents hit a $180 against him in Birmingham. 80 and 2/3 innings, 51 hits in 80 and 2/3 against him in Birmingham. This guy had a 2.12 ERA. 19 innings in AAA, 19 hits, 13 earned. He walked 10. Charlotte's not a fun place to pitch. He's somewhere in between a 6 ERA in triple and a 2.12 ERA in double. I'm fascinated to find out what this guy's going to look like at the major league level. It's going to be a hell of a lot better than watching Chris Flexen go 8 earned runs in an inning and 2/3. It's not Thorpe level because Thorpe is a top 100 prospect. Busch is not. I almost view it as like Brooks Baldwin because, like, why not, right?
Yes.
You get him up, you get him into the fold. Why not? Nothing is going right. Let's see what a guy that can be on your team in 6 years looks like.
100%. And I like the be on your team in 6 years thing is important here. He's probably not going to be a rotation piece for you, but a 6'6" lefty who can, I think he runs it. It's mostly 93, but if you put him out of the pen, it'll probably be 94, 95, but it has good characteristics, some decent ride to it, and a good slider. Like, that'll play out of the pen at the very least, but might as well see what he can do in longer spurts here and see how it goes. The fastball has performed pretty well this year. The slider has performed very well. And what's weird is he's actually kind of had reverse splits. I think that's not going to be something that lasts. I think at the big league level, being a 6'6" guy with fastball slider combination, ultimately it's going to play in a bullpen. The curveball and the changeup haven't been there for him at all this year. And I think that's more reason to just kind of project him into that bullpen role. Yeah. Again, might as well see what he can do now. And like you said, it's better than a lot of what they've been rolling out there. And if he finds that curveball and changeup, like the curveball's flashed, it looks like a good pitch. And I'm looking at the shape and stuff. It looks like it could be a good third pitch. Just hasn't been able to locate it, and going to AAA doesn't help that. But this is a guy that's going to serve a big league role one way or another. And you just need to accumulate those types of guys for the White Sox. Like at the very, very least, I do think Ky Bush is a fine left-handed reliever for you in the White Sox bullpen. And just, they got to find pieces.
He just ups the intrigue level too. And, like, be honest, over this 20-game losing streak, how many innings of White Sox baseball have you watched? Zero. So I've probably watched like 8 because I have a sickness. And I'll watch the condensed games because, again, I have a sickness with the Chicago White Sox. But in terms of sitting down and watching live action, this year, I was tuning into Thorpe starts, some Crochet starts, and that's it. Like, if anybody else was on the mound, I didn't really. I knew Fetty was doing well. I watched Fetty condensed games. I didn't sit down to watch Eric Fetty. I was sitting down to watch Crochet and Thorpe and doing something else when they were hitting. Now, like, I'm not going to say that Ky Bush becomes appointment television for me in the way that Crochet and Thorpe were, but he becomes like a little bit more intriguing. And I think for some White Sox fans, he's absolutely going to get them to turn on the TV. Yeah. And that's all you can ask for with arguably the worst team of the modern era at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to watch a 33-year-old after the deadline try to go throw for you, and there's nothing.
It sucks. It's demoralizing, and this is anything but demoralizing.
Yeah. Last thing on him, the last 10 outings, the slider really has performed. So I expect him to lean on that pretty heavily in his first outing, but chase rate over 35% on that slider, swinging strike rate at 19%. I mean, that's a pitch that will give him, a big league career, I think.
Yep. All right, we've got 3 guys going to AAA for the Cubs. All of a sudden, the Iowa Cubs become appointment television. We want to go one by one. Matt Shaw, Kevin Alcantara, James Triantos. And we'll start with Matt Shaw, 13th overall pick last year out of Maryland. Aram raved about him. Last year, his draft year at Maryland, in 1142 OPS, was so good in 38 games in affiliated ball last year, an OPS over 1,000. This year, 86 games with Tennessee. /279, 373, 468, an 841 OPS in as pitcher-friendly a league as we have in pro ball. 14 homers, 25 bags, kept the K rate in check and then some. Matt Shaw, I know he started really, really slow. He's been really, really good and looking like that mature Matt Shaw that we were expecting at the beginning of the year over the last month and change, 2 months.
Who didn't start slow in the Southern League, man? I don't know what was going on.
Carson Williams. Williams.
He's the only one
that didn't start slow.
He's the only one, and now he's hit a wall. It's weird how universal the struggle was, and I really do feel like there might have been some other baseball conspiracy there, maybe, but that's for another time. Last 50 games for Matt Shaw, 50. It's a big sample. 321, 391, 553 slash line. 11 home runs, as you mentioned, keeping the strikeout rate in check. 32 strikeouts in that span. That's a 14.5% rate and a 10% walk rate. What's amazing is even the expected stats are better. Like it's a 400 WOBA in that span, and expected stats are even higher than that. So Shaw looks like a guy that I think has really shook off that slow start, and now is back on track to, if they were in the hunt, could have been in that conversation of, he could get called up and help. They don't really need him in any spots right now. It's up to Nico Horner. It's up to Dansby Swanson. They went and got Isaac Paredes. But I do think it's interesting. I think the Isaac Paredes trade is a little bit of a clue maybe into how they're going to handle Shaw and Triantos, though, where Triantos is exclusively playing second. They kind of banged the center field thing, at least over the last month or so. Hasn't played there at all. Shaw has not played much third lately and has been shifting back to short, which I think is really interesting. It's been predominantly short after being predominantly second and third. The last few weeks, it's been a lot more short and a little bit of third and not as much second. So I am very interested to see how they handle the defensive situation at the AAA level, because it seems like Triantos second base, good. I'm very fascinated to see how they navigate Shaw. And on a big league macro scale, I think depending on how they perform here, and I do think that one or two of them will get a September call up here, because the Cubs have a decision to make this offseason where do you want to move off of Nico Hoerner because you have two players that could play second base as soon as next year? You're not moving off of Swanson. You traded for a third baseman because I think they felt like there's no chance Shaw or Triantos can play a viable third.
Yeah.
Is what will they need to see from Shaw or Triantos to maybe feel as though Hoerner could be expendable?
No, I think they already deem Hoerner expendable. I know that there was some smoke there about Hoerner at the deadline this year, and I think that will blossom into legitimate trade conversation this offseason. And if it doesn't happen this offseason, I think we're looking at the deadline. He is going to be a bigger piece, quote unquote, than Morel, but I think we're going to hear a lot of the same things about Hoerner that we did Morel last offseason, where for some reason, the Cubs are trying to unload Christopher Morel. What do they got going? What do they got going here? And then they attach him to a couple of like talented pitchers in that Isaac Paredes deal. I think that Hoerner is that kind of guy that like, hey, a team that wants to be good in 2025 just moved off a guy that they extended a year and a half ago. Why did they do that? Because they deem multiple guys, like you're saying, ready to be good enough there.
Yeah.
Could you also see a world where Hoerner starts to get reps in center? Because, like, it sucks to say, it has looked really, really bad for Pete Crow Armstrong.
I wouldn't totally rule that out. It's just the thing is Hoerner, the value comes from the glove at second, right? Like, unless he grades out as a
from the glove, it's short. And then it comes from the glove being gold glove caliber at second.
Yeah, exactly. So the point being, that's on the dirt. Like, he could be a fine center fielder, but then what are you getting there? Maybe he's an above average center fielder. Is still, unless he's elite, then now there's more pressure on the bat again. So it might be an option if they end up not going that route. But what's interesting too is I feel as though, I mean, they probably don't think Shaw's a legit shortstop, but if you're traveling together, Triantos and Shaw, only one of them can play second base at a time. And Triantos is a non-starter at shortstop at this point. So I think they figure Shaw just get the reps at short. If he's getting better at short, he's going to be better at second base pretty naturally. Of course, there's some subtle differences footwork-wise and things like that. I don't think they're too worried about that. Can hammer that out in the offseason and spring training. But I always, especially if you're a team that wants to compete, I hate the idea of, oh, we're going to bank on this prospect, because that sets you up for failure. But when you got two and they both are really good bat to ball wise, and Shaw gives you power and other things as well.
Yeah,
I have a lot of confidence that one of those two would be able to perform next year. Like, it's very rare that you have two big league ready second basemen or any position ready, like with advanced hitting ability going into next year. So this is a liberty that they have here, to where they may not have to trade from the farm, as you mentioned, and duplicate that Morel trade elsewhere, because Hoerner's contract is still, even with him having a bit of a down year, still a multi-win player. Is probably going to have over 3 WAR again. He had 4 last year. It's a deal that a lot of teams would happily take on.
He's an easy guy to move. You can absolutely get good pitching for Nico Hoerner, without a doubt in my mind. The other thing is, I think Hoerner is as good as gone. Like, if we played the game where it's like, hey, if you were a betting man, what would you bet on this offseason? I don't think Nico Hoerner is wearing a Cubs uniform. I don't think he's going to Sloan Park in Mesa in February or March, whenever it may be. But the other thing is, like, hey, do you want to try fitting the puzzle pieces together? Does Paredes move over to first base? Does Bush DH? I don't know. And do you move somebody else? I don't think that's the best use of their tools at all. And them, like, kind of weaning Shaw off of third base totally says that Paredes is the guy at third.
Yeah, absolutely. But that does give them that flexibility if they want to do that in certain matchups, whatever. Like, that is a nice liberty there. But Bush has turned into a really nice first baseman too.
Yeah. I mean, he's been good defensively. He's been hitting the crap out of the ball, dude. Like, he looks like the first baseman of the future for the Cubs.
Yeah. Last note on Shaw. How many times do you think he struck out in his last 97 plate appearances?
Not many at all. He was striking out more than I was expecting at the beginning of the year. last 90 plate appearances?
97.
97 plate appearances. I bet he's running a, let's see, view each plate appearance as a percentage point 8 times.
You nailed it. 8. Oh boy.
Oh, yeah.
That was solid.
That was
A little bit on Triantos too, I guess, how he's trending as he gets up there. Also has not been a slouch himself. Has looked really, really solid. I do wonder if they start to try to get him back out into center field. What's been weird with him is it's just kind of like 3 really good games, 3 really bad games, 3 really good games. But over his last 40, 302, 368, 432 slash line to 800 OPS. He's running an in-zone contact rate of 91% in that span. The guy's just going to get the bat on everything. And that's one thing that you can be sure of.
Yeah, no doubt. James Triantos. So you think he's just playing second? They're done with the outfield thing entirely.
It seems like it. And I don't know how comfortable he was really out there from what I saw. Like I thought it could turn into something decent, but I think second base makes the most sense.
Fair. Last guy that is part of that group going from Tennessee to Iowa is Kevin Alcantara. Yeah, Kevin Alcantara, the outfielder that we were as close to out on as you could possibly be. And at the end of the day, man, like, what has he done? I think it's just a natural progression. Oh, yeah, let's get Alcantara up there, too. 272, 342, 409 slash is a 750 OPS, which is, above average in the Southern League. 9 homers, 76 games played. Like, again, you just look at him. You look at the production year over year. It's kind of the same meh thing. Like, I'm waiting for the breakout. He's been fine this year, but it's not a breakout.
Is he the toolsiest and biggest 120 WRC plus guy of all time?
Is he a one? I mean, in the minor leagues, he's a 120 WRC plus guy.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying in the minors.
No, he's the flashiest replacement level player ever when he gets to the big leagues.
Like and it might happen though when he's 25 and then everyone's be like, see, I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't have 10 years of patience. But like, it's funny because he has had this stretch again where he looks like it could start to be coming together, right? The last 40 games, 312, 393, 461 slash line. What continues to make me want to put my head through a wall, 5 home runs. And I just think he's too long. I think he's too long to the ball and it's too hard to create leverage. So then it just becomes flat. And that's why he puts the ball on the ground so much. And that's why he has to kind of cheat. I think he's the kind of guy that when you get to the big league level, you execute a plan, you can set him down pretty easily. That said, he has been as patient as ever, which is really good because that's something he has to focus on. How are you going to shore up the other aspects of your profile? I think another way for him to be able to tap into more power is by making better swing decisions. But I don't know with this guy. It's been good and much better of late. AAA is going to be a fun test because that's where pitchers are a lot more. The stuff might not be as good, but as you know, like they're a lot more savvy and they're going to see a 6'6", 22-year-old and kind of say, it used to be more free swinging, but not as much now, but see a 6'6", 22-year-old and say, oh, I know how to get those types of guys out. And see how Alcantara responds to that. I could see him getting picked apart, but I could also see him finding some confidence there. I don't know if there's any in between. And again, I give up on giving predictions on Kevin Alcantara at this point.
Yeah, I love that point that you make, and the way that like I've kind of decided the difference between AA and AAA pitching is a lot of AA arms know how to get guys out, but they struggle to make their bodies do it. They can do it in spurts. In AAA, they know how to get guys out that fit into certain archetypes, like a Kevin Alcantara. But in AAA ball, they can make their body do it most of the time.
Yeah.
In the big leagues, they can make their body do it all of the time. And the stuff is better. The stuff is worse in AAA than AA. Like, I firmly stand by that at this point. Like, they execute. The stuff is not great, but I see guys that are throwing high spin 88, high carry 88 that are getting outs. And I'm just like, you're throwing 88, man. At the end of the day, they execute against young bats and they can beat them at chess. And Kevin Alcantara is going to see the closest thing to a grandmaster in this chess game that he's ever seen.
Well, and I will say he's probably the most prepared that he's ever been for it because listen to this. I don't know if I've ever seen this. First 25 games of the season, 41% chase rate. Since then, which has been 53 games, a 27% chase rate.
So he just decided one day to stop chasing. That's what that tells me.
Yeah, they said, "Hey, dude, like if you want to make this work, like stop chasing."
He's like,
What
okay, and then did it.
why I do think he carves out a big league career is the glove is good in center.
Yeah.
Like could be plus. And he can run. So at the very least, I think you've got this. I know he hasn't been as much of a lefty masher this year. He was a lefty crusher last year. He could be that platoon type, demolishes lefties. You put him in against righties in certain spots. But the thing is I do think that the floor is a bit higher than perceived. It's just would be very disappointing for a guy with as high of his ceiling to, not reach beyond his floor. But the floor would be kind of that fourth outfielder that's way too talented that you just keep waiting and waiting. I love to talk about like Jake Marisnik. Like,
yeah,
it's just like that, what he can be. And it's just like, oh man, you keep waiting and waiting and waiting. But a PCA Kevin Alcantara platoon in center could be the most frustrating and talented duo of all time.
God, that would make me go gray so quick if I was like sitting down, relying on them to produce for my favorite team.
Oh man.
That
at least Alcantara made the decision to swing less. Hopefully, PCA will oblige soon too.
Yeah, I'll be a silver fox by that time. But Brandon Sproat, we got to get to the guy, and he is the pitcher to watch in minor league baseball right now. Like full stop, Brandon Sproat is the guy to watch in minor league baseball. His last start in Binghamton before a call up to AAA Syracuse. Brandon Sproat, the Mets prospect, second round pick last year out of Florida. 5 innings, 2 hits, no runs, no walks, 13 Ks. 81 pitches, 57 for strikes. Watching that fastball, like I know the secondaries were good too, but that fastball looked 115 miles an hour out of his hand. And it's not like a moon landing type broadcast that he was on. It actually just looked like it was jumping out of his hand. Similar sensation to Shane Baz when he first came up, like a healthy Baz, where it looked so low effort and borderline slow in terms of the arm path, and then the ball comes out of his hand, and all of a sudden it's popping the catcher's mitt.
Yeah.
That shit has to jump on guys. And I know that it's 100, but it has to play up to the point where it feels like, I know Jackson Holliday said this about Skeens, this has to feel like 110 miles an hour for some players.
Yeah. I mean, because of it's like a long arm action, but then
yeah, but it's slow. Like it's not,
yeah,
you don't think, wow, he's working his arm so quick.
No, it's long and kind of slow, and then it just gets on you, which is, I mean, I don't know if there's a tougher AB. I think Jackson Jobe is a better pitcher, and Jobe is going to be a guy that, I mean, he's going to just sequence and he's going to pick you apart with insane stuff. But I think Sproat is the best raw stuff in the minor leagues. I just, how can you have better? Let me just read you the arsenal, Jack, and then tell me if you think somebody has better stuff than this. A fastball that averages 97 miles per hour and also gets, I would say, slightly above average carry from the release point. Then you have a slider at 87 with gyro break off of that release point. You have a hard curveball at 80. That's disgusting. And then I don't even know what to do with this because it's like, it's a separate pitch. He's got 3 breaking balls. I think he's the closest thing. I'm not saying like in terms of ability, but I think he's the closest thing in terms of like arsenal wise and just the way he puts it all together to Paul Skeens that we've really seen, because he's got the slider, the curveball, and then a sweeper, and they're all totally different. They're all totally different pitches. And then guess what the other thing he has is that splinker. It really is a splinker because it's 89 up to 92, gets mischaracterized as a sinker all the time, just like Skeens does. And the shape isn't that far off. It doesn't quite have as much depth, but Skeens has the 2 splinkers that he throws. One is a little bit more of that true sinker. One has more depth, and Sproat's slots right in the middle of the 2. So, I mean, he is that like closest thing. Again, not saying he's Paul Skeens. Skeens throws 100. Skeens has better command. Skeens, I think, has an even better field of pitch.
But he's a bigger guy. Is a bigger guy that has the crossfire deception thing going too.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Sproat has a fastball that can play as well as Skeens is, it sounds like. Because again, Skeens, it plays well because of the crossfire deception from a big guy and because it's so ridiculously hard. But Sproat is 2 miles an hour slower and he gets carry from a good release.
Yes. And it's not elite carry, but it's a little bit better. And I mean, opponents are hitting $174 against this fastball this year. So you got that. You've got that change up that really is that splinker pitch, and it's similar, just off the charts in zone whiff. And then it's the slider. I think the best way to characterize it is that slider that I initially said is 90. Like, it really breaks like a slider, but it's probably closer to a cutter. And then that sweeper is more of his traditional slider, and then he has that curveball. How do you prepare for that, dude?
You don't.
You can't.
Answering your question in terms of best raw stuff in the minor leagues, like who has better stuff pitch by pitch than that, I think the only fair answer that I could give you is Mizorowski, but there's a clear separator between Sproat and Mizorowski, and that's ability to like actually throw strikes. Mizorowski's AAA debut, I didn't have it on the rundown because it was terrible. Like,
I had a feeling it was not
3 walks. Like, he couldn't throw strikes to save his life. And I'm going to get a look at him. They play Indy this week. So, like, I'm excited to kind of sit down and watch Mizorowski. And we'll talk about that a little bit later this week. But, dude, like, it was not good. With Sproat, I mean, this guy could start for the Mets in a wild card push in September.
Yeah. And it's not like he's going to fill the zone up. Like, I think ultimately he could get better with it. I think the long arm action is always going to make it average command at best. It could be frustrating at times. Still in C-Slack. Yeah, I think he's a guy that can be cut from that cloth, where when he's on, he's in the conversation for most dominant pitcher in baseball. It's just not on consistently enough.
Yeah.
Maybe he does start to put that together, but I think that's where he kind of settles in, is that guy that when he's on, it's, no hitter type of stuff, but it's just not always going to be there consistently enough. Like that change up that he throws, it's about a 56% strike rate, but when he's locating it, good luck. There was a sequence that I saw, and we're going to put out a video on Brandon Sproat that you can find on our socials and on YouTube, where he starts you with a fastball up and in at 99, and then a splinker, whatever you want to call it, right off of that same spot, diving downwards. And it's like, what do you do with that? And it was 2 just half-hearted swings. When he's doing that, he's unhittable. But the problem is he's just not locating that pitch consistently enough. But when you just get those flashes of what it can look like, and his field of spin has been there, though. He's been locating those pitches enough, and the fastball command has been fantastic, which is the most important thing. If you throw your fastball for a strike, you'll be okay.
Everything stems off of fastball command, and the best example that I can point you to, we talked about this on today's Just Baseball show. Hunter Green, his fastball command has gone up like exponentially this year. He is comfortable working around the perimeter instead of, if I'm throwing a strike, he was wild within the zone where it was just like over the heart of the plate and he was getting killed. Opponents were slugging 500 against his 4-seam fastball in 22 and 23. Opponents are slugging, I think, at the 200s against Hunter Green's 4-seam fastball this year because he's locating it. It's not 99. Like, technically, it's the lowest average velo it's ever been. The shape has not changed. It's a matter of executing. Everything stems off of fastball command. And if Sproat has enough of that, we're looking at a guy that can be a top flight starting pitcher in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the Chase Burns thing too, right? That fastball has no business getting hit as hard as it does. And I think that's why the Reds are seeing what's happening with Hunter Green in real time and said, but we can do this again. So I'm really fascinated to see if they even maybe try to get Burns to take a tick off of it and spot it more. I'm excited to see how they handle that too.
Yep. Next guy that we got to talk about is Xavier Isaac with the Tampa Bay Rays. He just got the promotion to Double-A Montgomery. First 3 games with Montgomery, 4 for 12 with 2 doubles and a homer already. Good on you, X. But Xavier Isaac, 70 games in High A, slashed 288, 380, 537, 15 homers, a 917 OPS. I'm so fascinated by this guy being 14 for 16 in the stolen base department.
I know you love that.
It's just like he's 6'4", 240, and he's carved out of granite. He hits the ball 1 billion miles an hour. You have no right to swipe 15, 20 bags in a given season.
I got another fun, sneaky stolen base guy for you is Agustin Ramirez.
Really?
Go check the stolen base numbers on him.
Cool. I will in a moment, but this was in about damn time promotion, and that lineup in Montgomery with Chandler Simpson, Carson Williams, Xavier Isaac, the top of it, that's up there with Iowa.
Oh, it's real fun. You got Keegan still in there as well. Yeah. I mean, there's just some fun players. Braden Taylor, I wonder when he's gonna potentially get an opportunity to get to triple. I think they're gonna probably keep him here for the rest of the year.
I
and
would
then
think so
started.
because he just got up. We
Yeah,
talked
he
about
just
him
got
last
up
episode.
too, which is funny because I thought he should have been up there way long ago as well. So I think he probably rides it out the rest of the year, and then we'll see if he starts it next year. What I love about Xavier Isaac is he shakes off a golden sombrero in his Double-A debut, over 4 strikeouts, then back-to-back games with 2 hits, and I mean it couldn't have been a tougher matchup for him against Noah Schultz, and he was the only guy that had good ABs against Noah Schultz in his second game. I mean, Schultz, they're managing his innings, so he only went 3 2/3, but Schultz only allowed 1 hit. It was to Xavier Isaac, who took a slider the other way, 103 for a base hit, which, by the way, was only the 4th hit that Noah Schultz has allowed on his slider to a lefty this year, who opponents were hitting like 096 or something against it. The other thing was he worked like an 8-pitch walk. So there was only 3 base runners against Noah Schultz, and 2 of them were Xavier Isaac. And that's left on left somewhere where he's kind of struggled this year a little bit. So that was encouraging. Then he goes yard the other day and just absolutely pulverizes another baseball. The underlying whiff rates are a little bit high, I will say, and that is a little concerning. Like they've gotten up there to a degree for how productive he's been, but man, he's just a hitter. Like it's just one of those things where I don't understand how he's so consistently productive despite the whiff rates being a little bit higher than you want to see. But at the same time, he hits the ball so hard. He's such a natural hitter. For a guy that's that big, I think he'll be able to continue to hedge that. But Double A is going to be a test, and I think he is going to strike out a fair amount, and it might not be pretty the rest of the year. He's going to have flashes, but that strikeout rate may inflate. That's okay. He's 20.
Yeah. We're working in pairs moving forward. We've got 2 Dodgers, 2 Pirates, 2 Rockies to wrap. And the first Dodger that I want to talk about is Dalton Rushing, who just got the promotion to AAA. Dalton Rushing is a guy that I feel like is going to be pretty damn high this week on the top 100 update because he has looked the part in Double-A. Dalton Rushing, 77 games with Double-A Tulsa, 271, 378, 513 slashes, and 891 OPS, 17 homers, 59 driven in 77 games. The K rate much, much better than it was last year. This guy, dude, I mean, I love that the Dodgers made a decision and we weren't looking at, oh, you've got Smith extended. What are you going to do with Rushing? Oh, you've got Lorenzo hitting. What are you going to do with Rushing? Oh, you've got, Cartaya. For some reason, you're still putting eggs in that basket. What are you going to do with Rushing? No, the answer is Smith is going to catch 4 days a week. Rushing is going to catch 3, or vice versa, and Smith is going to DH a lot. They have a big piece of their lineup that just got up to Oklahoma City.
And you know what Dalton Rushing did a little bit of the last couple weeks?
Walk?
Play left field.
Really?
Played a little left.
Oh, man. Well, they move off a franchise cornerstone for the Southsiders moving forward to Miguel Vargas, so they need assistance there.
But that's intriguing. They might see him as a bat that can help them this year. And I know when we interviewed Rushing going into the year, he just took so much pride in where he's developing defensively behind the dish that he's like, yeah, the hitting, I feel good where I'm at. That's kind of coming secondary right now. I'm focusing on developing as a catcher. And he's done that. And he has developed nicely and looks like a solid piece. And he was catching, that super staff of the Dodgers and all of those guys and working with them was extremely valuable. But I think there's been a level of over the last couple of weeks, hey, Dalton, we still want you to catch. We still want you to keep fresh there and keep working that because you are long-term a catcher. But we're trying to win a World Series this year. And the way you're swinging it, we think you can help us, offensively at the highest level if you can just get by in the outfield. We move Vargas, right? We've trimmed some fat there. Can't be worse than Vargas defensively, I think. We'll see how bad it is out there. I got to go watch some of the video. But I think just having that feeling of, okay, let me focus on the bat now and let me just hit has made a bit of a difference for him. Last 20 games, too. He's been great all year, but last 20 games, 293, 379, 627 slash line. He has 7 home runs in his last 15 games.
Wow.
Hitting the crap out of the ball. He's elevating consistently. He doesn't chase at all. I mean, this is a 17% chase rate. I feel really good. I mean, the swing decisions being so good, his ability to elevate being so consistent, it's just another guy that you could probably rush to the bigs and just not have face lefties. Because from the facing righties, he's just been a monster all year and has continued to be 922 OPS on the season against righties. So I wouldn't be shocked if we see him called up this year. And I think that they're tipping their hand a little bit with him getting some reps in left and now getting promoted to AAA.
So you do think that like we might be looking at Dalton Rushing as a September call up. And one of my favorite episodes that we do each year is like around the August 20 timeline. We predict the September call ups for each team because we get to shed light on the 29-year-old org guys that are like,
Yes.
hey, you have a 900 OPS and triple. Like, let's give you a shot. But also a Dalton Rushing who might be that shot of adrenaline for the LA Dodgers.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, all right, the second Dodger that we got to talk about is Jackson Ferris. And I thought this was fascinating. Ferris came over in the Michael Busch Yency Almonte deal along with Zaire Hope. Jackson Ferris is one of the very few guys that the Dodgers have let be all systems go at the lower levels. 98 innings across 20 starts with high A Great Lakes. And Ferris was kicking ass. 3.39 ERA in 98 and a third, 11 strikeouts per nine. The walks, we were concerned about the overall lack of control last year. 5.5 walks per nine in low A. In a high A this year, fewer than 4. 3.9 is a number that you can continue to see dwindle. But at the end of the day, I'll take 3.9 from a guy with this kind of stuff. He's going to go to double. This is going to be a huge challenge for him, but he's 20 years old. He doesn't turn 21 until January. This guy could be one of the pitching steals. And, we see like he blossoms as a Dodger and we say, man, how did they get this guy? What round did they take him in? Oh shit, he was in a trade. That could be this guy.
Yeah, him and Zaire Hope too. I mean, it's been great to have Bush in Chicago, but Zaire Hope back off the IL as well, scorching baseballs again. I've already seen a handful of 110, 111s. Ferris, over his last 5 starts, 0.79 ERA. It's 34 innings, 3 earned runs, only 12 hits allowed. So I love that you mentioned the aspect of him being stretched out and just letting him roll. He threw 101 pitches a couple weeks ago. And then after that, 92, after that, 88, after that, 98. And through those stretches, he's just still sitting. His velocity has actually gone up as the year has progressed. As they've let him throw more pitches, he's thrown harder. He was averaging more 92, 93, maybe a little bit of 4s in the first half of the season. And now he's sitting 94, 95 through the rest so far this year. So things are really coming together for him. And it seems like the Dodgers have kind of helped him get right. Still needs to find that third pitch, though. The fastball, slider are great, and he's really commanding those. Changeup and curveball are lagging far behind. But when you're a lefty with that kind of stuff, you can still dominate off the fastball, slider. And, we'll just see how those third and fourth pitches come along.
Yep. All right, 2 Pirates here, and we got to talk about the super, super notable one, and that is Bubba Chandler. Bubba Chandler is getting up. He's going to make his AAA debut this week with Indianapolis. I'm just looking at the numbers since June 21st, because on June 15th, I want to say, he allowed 5 runs in a start. Then he went 7 shutout with 10 Ks and 1 walk. Since June 21st, Bubba Chandler, in 40 innings, has allowed 10 runs. That's a 2.25 ERA in 40 innings. Opponents are hitting 148 against him. 47 punchouts, 6 walks in his last 40 innings. He's been one of the better pitchers in minor league baseball in that stretch. And his last start, dude, was utterly insane before this AAA call-up. 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 7 Ks, no walks. This guy, I was watching the first 3 innings and they were over in a blink. I think in the first 3 innings, he was at like 28 pitches and already had a couple of Ks, and it was dynamite from him. This guy has achieved a new level of locked in.
Could be, if you want to manage his innings at the end of the year, maybe a little bullpen opportunity.
You think so?
Nah, I don't know, but
he's not 40 man. Like, you don't need
to he's not 40 man. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. You don't need to protect him. You don't need
Probably
to protect
not.
the next guy that we're going to talk about too. I would expect him to end the year in triple and start next year in triple.
Maybe if they're real close and they get desperate, because they could use some bullpen help. I saw Jake Woodford get the 9th the other day.
Although Woodford his fastball is kind of right, dude. Like
he's playing well out of the pen.
He's found something.
Good for him. Good for him.
Yeah. Plant High School alum Jake Woodford.
Yeah, a lot of talent out of there. Bubba, I mean, I think the big difference for him is the changeup has always been great. The fastball is elite. Can he spin it consistently? And over the last 10 starts, he's really starting to spin it. And that slider / cutter, he's just commanding it consistently, and the results are there. The changeup's disgusting. Like you're not that changeup off of the fastball. He could probably succeed with those two pitches alone for the most part, but to really translate to the big leagues, you got to have that spin too, and he is doing it. He's even mixing in a curveball to steal some strikes. That's been really effective for him. And honestly, I think it's better than that. It's a complete arsenal all of a sudden. That was the big question with him. Remember we were talking about he's throwing his fastball 70% of the time. Like this is not sustainable. It's still a high fastball usage, which is okay for considering how good it is, but he's got it under 60%, which is now in the realm of reasonable, and that'll work.
More than reasonable. If it's under 60%, like if you've got a fastball like that, you can rip that at a 59% clip. Hell, like I think you could get close to the low 60s, like 61, 62, and still survive on that. Now, if you want to be an elite, pitch mix guy, you probably need to see it in the low 50s or maybe even high 40s. But I think you can get away with, 58.
He's at 59%. And
what's reasonable for you? Like, what do you
about
think?
That? Yeah. Once it gets over 60, I get a little uncomfortable.
Got you.
Unless it's like elite. So, I mean, yeah, again, Chandler at 60% would work. I just think for him to achieve that ceiling, it's not a lot of guys that have fastball usage over 60% that are also, dominating at the front end.
No, and if guys do that, it looks like DeGrom, right? Where it's 102, and for some reason the timing is a beat off, and like it plays at a level that like DeGrom in an unorthodox way has an 80 grade fastball because of the weird like beat timing deception that he has.
Yeah, and Bubba has a 70 though, and over his last 10 starts, 156 batting average against his fastball. What's amazing is with the ride that it features and the backspin and all that stuff, doesn't give up homers, which is a really encouraging aspect of things too.
Because I don't think anybody fucking touches it. But we go to Thomas Harrington. Thomas Harrington made his AAA debut. He faced Akil Baddoo, Spencer Torkels, and Jace Young in a 1-2-3 first inning, 9 pitches, 8 strikes. Like not being afraid in your AAA debut in the first inning was kind of crazy, especially against that lineup. He got hit decently hard in 2 innings of that, I think 5 innings worth of work. He went 5 2/3 into Indy, but 68 1/3 with Double A Altoona, a 2.24 ERA, 74 Ks, 10 walks in 68 1/3. This guy has always been a strikeout artist, a zone pounder, and he's always had this pitchability feel that is crazy. And it's clear that the fastball plays well. Had the chance to talk to him a little bit the day before he started, and I mean, he kind of echoes the same things that you like hearing from a Jared Jones and a Joe Ryan and a Bryce Miller and a Brian Wu, because it's a low release height. It's good carry from that release. And he really, really leans into that.
I mean, 16 inches of vert from a 5.4 release height is going to play. And
I was watching that in real time. Like on the research portal, you get like induced vert and you get release height. And I made sure earlier this week, I had a eureka moment where I figured out how to like query that and make sure that each of them can pop up pitch by pitch. And I was watching that. I was like, those two numbers don't jive at all.
No, which is amazing. And that's why for hitters, they have the same mental compute too, where it's like, that's not where that pitch is supposed to be from that release.
Right.
It's 93, but it works. And the confidence aspect that you bring up is great because like he's filling the zone with it at a 74% clip. And he knows that sometimes guys are going to get to it, but another guy that high carry generally can be hard to keep in the yard. He's a 25% ground ball rate on his fastball, yet he's only allowed 1 home run on it this season. That says a lot about the quality of it. The velocity was down slightly in that outing. So I wonder if that was part of it. Like he averaged about 91.5 in the outing. So maybe that was part of the reason why it wasn't as effective, but you also just have those AAA adjustments that you have to make. But I mean, it's 60+% strike rate. It's 62% or higher across his entire arsenal. It's that strike throwing fastball, high quality fastball arsenal that I think will make him a very high probability back into the rotation starter. And if he finds another tick, could get closer to the middle, but I think he's a really solid 4. And I'm excited to see how he builds in AAA.
Yep. 2 more guys. Our favorite Colorado Rockies. Sean Sullivan is the first one that's officially a yard goat, made his Double A debut. So Sean Sullivan, 4 shutout innings, 3 hits, 1 walk. What are you doing? 2 Ks from Sullivan. This year, you combine his 14 starts in high A and then his 1 start in Double A. A 2.06 ERA, 87 1/3, 103 punch outs, 9 walks. Come on, man.
While
I know it's
averaging
not
80,
96, blow
it's
your doors off.
87 and it's 87 and a half.
That's unbelievable. And the Rockies found a weirdo that's going to work.
It's gonna work. I don't know where the velocity went this year because it was 91, 92 last year. You averaged 93 in some outings. It's down, obviously, but you can't really argue against this. It works. I want to see it continue to work in double. It just did through the first outing. He's now compiled, I think, 15 or 16 consecutive scoreless innings.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, doesn't walk anybody. It's not like he's nibbling in the upper 80s. The breaking ball is gross. The changeup from that release point is crazy. His in zone whiff rates are nuts across his entire arsenal. It's an in zone whiff rate of 28%. For reference, across an entire arsenal, generally the average is going to be about 16, 17%. So to be doing that, and also fastball chase rate of 38% when you're throwing 87 is crazy. If he finds a tick or two in this offseason, if he can sit 90, you've got like Nestor Cortez on steroids if he gets up there. So I'm excited to see more. I'm really fascinated to see how he comes back after this offseason, but I'm glad that we can finally get the double-A test because he was just picking apart these poor high-A hitters that just couldn't figure out the angle. I want to see how double-A hitters maybe adjust. Maybe they don't, but I want to see how it looks. But, man, they definitely found a guy that's going to fill a role for them.
Slight pushback. I want to see him get to the big leagues and bully like an all-star with an 86-mile-an-hour fastball. I want to see it.
That would be nice. There'd be a lot of stories around that. I'm like, oh, do we have to rethink everything? Right. The guy that's bucking the trend, like
Jamie Moyer's back. Yeah, no, I mean, like
I was thinking
Ryan
Moyer
Yarbrough,
too. I was thinking
Ryan Yarbrough before he got DFA'd was literally the headline of a 5-part Athletic article of like how you can buck the trend, and then he got DFA'd. I want to see the guy that like actually is in the All-Star game at 86 miles an hour.
I love that. Yep, I agree.
Last guy that we got to talk about is Jaden Hill. Jaden Hill, second round pick of the Rockies in 2021 at LSU. He was so unhealthy, like so injured. In 22, 23, he threw 43 innings. This year, 38 and a third with Double-A Hartford. He had a 3.5 out of the bullpen. He was serving as their closer. Punched out 56 and walked just 11 in 38 and a third. Got to Albuquerque, first inning, sucked. That's okay. It's Albuquerque. He punched out 3. He got all 3 outs.
That's all I care about.
Yeah. And like at the end of the day, I think they just decided to call it quits because last year he started 16 games, was heavily protected in high A. They called it quits on the starting pitching thing. They moved him to the bullpen. And the Rockies may feel like they have a reliever moving forward in Jaden Hill.
They got another one here. Yeah, he's gonna be a 7th, 8th inning guy at least. He could blossom into a closer. Remember, this is a guy that missed a lot of time, even in college, missed a lot of time. Like you said, he could really blossom in the show, but he already has the stuff of a 7th, 8th inning guy. It's 97. He's running it up to triple digits, good characteristics. He's got a 4-seamer and a sinker, which is great for him to be able to adjust when he's home and away. Then he's got a slider and changeup that are really good. Remember, the changeup was always the pitch for him, and that changeup is still there. Opponents are hitting 119 against, and he throws it a lot, 23% usage on the changeup. No one can touch it, and he's throwing it for a strike 65% of the time, and he'll still mix in a good slider. So this is a high leverage arm. Assuming health, I think that the Rockies have a high leverage arm here, and I'm glad that they adjusted so quickly instead of wasting time and maybe even further hurting him. He seems to be succeeding in this role, and both from a health and just a performance standpoint, the majority of his outings have been scoreless. Really, it's just when they go bad, they seem to like go really bad. It's multi-runs. But before that call up to AAA, he had gone, I believe it was 7 straight scoreless outings, and he had a stretch just before that where he went 7 straight scoreless outings. So he's been fantastic. I do think this is another bullpen arm for the Rockies.
I'm in on that. That's what we got.
That's it for today's episode. We have a lot to catch up on this week because we are going to update that top 100 list. So keep an eye out for that. Should be around the middle of the week, and potentially another player interview coming up this week as well. As always, thank you for listening. If you could subscribe on YouTube, help us grow that channel, that would be awesome. Of course, leave a rating, help us grow the show, would be amazing as well. And we will talk prospects with you tomorrow.